I'm Juliet. I'm an alcoholic. Hello. Um, yeah, a little nerve wracking. Um, I always get nervous speaking at meetings anyway, especially if it's not like about an AA nerd thing, like traditions or something, or you're talking about this topic, step 5 or whatever. I don't know. I could always talk about a topic. Never occurred to me until just now. Anyway, um, I love this meeting. Like my relationship with most things, there's some hate there on occasion, um, extreme dislike, annoyance. Um, but I really do love this meeting. I started coming to this meeting, I don't know, about almost 6 years ago now. Um, and I saw a post about it on the Icky Paw Facebook group, and I was like, oh, I'll check that out, and I've been coming ever since. And um, it's really helped me a lot. I have a couple of chronic illnesses that have kept me from being able to go to face-to-face meetings all the time. So having online meetings has been a real godsend for me. And and I'm so glad I was in a pre-COVID, online meeting. And I'm actually so glad that online AA meetings have finally getting some of the respect that they deserve. I'm sure some of you are like, is she gonna tell her story? Ooh. Yes, here it is. I feel like everyone's heard my story a lot, but I don't think I've talked to this meeting in a while. So my sobriety date is August 11th of 1986. And when I came to AA, it was for real. It was right before my last year of high school. And so I spent my last year of high school sober. I was 17 years old, and a lot of shit has happened between that day and today. Uh, a, a dear friend of mine asked me to kind of look over this. They wrote out their story because they're going to speak at a conference, and they're really nervous. And I was looking at, I know they did such a beautiful job. Maybe I should read that. It's a 45-minute thing though. I don't have enough time. But she like did it so beautifully, and wrote about had subheadings like early sobriety and this and that, and she's a cancer survivor, cancer, and it was really something to read. And I'm not really a very organized speaker, unless I'm talking about a topic. But when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I was a kid. Sorry if you're 17 and you don't think you're a kid. I've turned into one of those people who, everyone under the age of 40 is a kid to me. I think I probably get it from my mom. Another thing to blame her for. But I've spent my whole adult life in Alcoholics Anonymous. Like literally my whole adult life, I've been in AA. And so everything I learned here. And there are a lot of things that I didn't do right. I think one of the challenges of being a young person in Alcoholics Anonymous is not only are we getting sober, we're growing up at the same time. And so I didn't get that like cushion of like being loaded during a lot of like my stupidest mistakes of my 20s and that kind of stuff. I was sober. And I made a long list of mistakes. one of the dumbest things I did, I I say dumb, it was dumb. I'm going to stick with dumb. Was for years I didn't live by the seventh tradition. So I just like, I'm not good with money, I'm not good with math. Um, and so I just, if I had it, I spent it, and I didn't understand the concept of credit, got super in debt, and I mean, who, starts living by their means at, 30 some odd years of sobriety right here. It was a painful lesson, um, one I do not wish to repeat. And I think a big part of that too was just, not only did I not understand those concepts, I still really don't. It's mostly like, I did that before, let's not do that again. But also, I'm really good at BSing myself, at bullshitting myself. You don't have to be loaded to be dishonest with yourself. If you haven't learned that in sobriety yet, I'm here to share that information with you. I wanted stuff, so I just got it. And, as happens when I act out of selfishness, or not thinking or being careless and unthinking, those things always blew up in my face when I've done that kind of stuff. I do like to qualify a little bit, especially in meetings where there's lots of newcomers. And this has gone from a meeting where there were like, I don't know, like 20 of us on a good night, Eldon. I don't know if Fred's here. But like, 20, 25 of us on a good night, most of us having at least 2 years or so, to a meeting of 104 people. And I bet most of you have under a year of sobriety. So I do think it's important to qualify. The first time I got drunk outside of a roller rink. That's right, a roller rink. It was the 80s after all. And I didn't even get drunk. It was my first drink. And we all had California coolers, and there was enough for each person to have 2. And I remember wanting more, like kind of wishing, like, I wish that, his other people weren't drinking theirs. And then the next time I drank, I got drunk. And I remember thinking, I want to do this every single day for the rest of my life. And from then on, it basically became, waiting it out until I turned 18 so I could move out and do whatever I want, drink like I wanted. And I was one of those people who had immediate issues. I was sexually assaulted the first night I got drunk. That was a pattern in my drinking. And I really believe part of the reason why I got sober so young, because it was so painful and awful. I immediately got into trouble too with the police, and I got like the cute white girl discount. Didn't really have some of the issues I think I would have had if I was a man, or of a different color, and I was very lucky in that way. And I basically just made it my business to be loaded all the time. At the end of my drinking, I had been forced to come to AA when I was in rehab, outpatient rehab. I started going to that when I was 16, and they made me get a little slip signed, and was very resentful about that. You poor people at 974 Haven. I'm sure at least one of you, what's up? I'm sure one of you is like, oh, this is such bullshit. Why do I have to be on this stupid meeting? My heart goes out to you. Um, the best thing about Alcoholics Anonymous to me, before I got sober, was that there were hot people here. They weren't all hot, but when they were hot, I paid attention to what they had to say. And so good looking people kind of saved my life. If everybody in AA was ugly, I'd probably be drunk now. But slowly over time, I started to hear what attractive people had to say, and things just stuck in my head. And so by the time I got sober for real, I had decided that I was going to stop drinking. And of course, it was for a dude. Won't go into that. I don't think I have time. And I found, much to my shock and dismay, that I couldn't. I was able to stop drinking for 3 days. And then at the end of those 3 days, somebody offered me a drink. And I said, oh, I can't drink. I'm on a diet. And I was like I look like I ate 2 of the old me now. Like I was really skinny. So, I mean, who gives this excuse, right? But this chick said, oh, well, just have a sip. And I took that sip. And the next thing I knew, I was like wasted. And I was getting drunk in the jacuzzi and dropping acid with some dude who wasn't my boyfriend. And, getting chased by the police later because I was like so drunk in public. And I have to tell you guys, I'm not lying when I say that was a pretty typical night for me. It really was. I was also thinking about one of the times, like somebody was like, well, what was one of the worst times before you got sober? And there was one time I went to this park across the street from my house, and I drank a bunch, and I passed out, like this. And, it was a nice summer day, and I was as orange or red as Josh B's hoodie. Like I was just like on this side though. So I looked like that old Star Trek episode where like there's the half white and the half black person. And then there's the half black and the half white person, or whatever the opposite is. And they're like, I hate you. But I looked like that, just orange. And I was doing that kind of stuff all the time. And so when I realized that I was an alcoholic and I couldn't stop drinking on my own, thank God I knew where to come, because I had already been coming here. And I got a sponsor right away, and my life began to change. And I've never had one of those. I really wanted one of those stories that I thought some people have. And I think sometimes when we tell our stories here in AA, we make it sound like we got sober and everything's peachy keen all the time now. Everything's wonderful. So happy. My relationship with my higher power is so wonderful. I love everyone. I don't have resentments anymore. That's not my story. All of those things have happened to a certain extent, but then, like everything, things change. My dad died in 1995. That was probably the hardest thing I've ever gone through, possibly in my life. I flipped out. I think that's probably the closest that I've ever been really to maybe killing myself. I didn't really want to get drunk, but I just didn't want to be around anymore. And so I filled up a lot of my time with shopping and sugar and sex. Created a lot of wreckage there. And the ramifications of some of those decisions dogged me for a long time. And I remember talking with my sponsor at the time after all this was over, And I just felt like such a loser, like this is the way that people with, 9 years of sobriety are supposed to behave. And I think at that time I had 13, so I was still like holding on to all that stuff. And she said, someday you're going to be able to share this experience with someone and who's having these same problems, and you're going to be able to talk with that alcoholic and tell them what you did. And I thought, that is such bullshit. That's never going to happen. It's the stupidest thing this person's ever said. And sure enough, a couple of weeks later, I was sitting with a woman at coffee talking to her, and she had done the same thing. And that's one of the rad things about AA for me, is that my mistakes turn into ways that I can help others. And, how often do you get, like recovering alcoholics? Like, how often are people like, oh, I want to talk to you? Like, it only happens in Alcoholics Anonymous. And, a lot of the like adulty boxes have been checked, or what I think of as adulty boxes. I have car insurance. I live in a suburb. I did get married. That was a surprise to me. I was sure I was going to be one of those people who were able to render prodigies of service to Alcoholics Anonymous, because I was going to be single forever. And I also thought that I was going to have this like super bitchin' awesome career, and that wherever I went, people would be in awe of me because I was so like incredibly prestigious. That part didn't happen. And sometimes that bothers me to this day. Being chronically ill is not fun. And I love how I blame everything on that. I just realized that I blame everything on that. I don't know, I came here expecting, I think at some point I started expecting that what was going to happen is at some point I would be so spiritual that I would levitate around, and nothing would ever bother me again, and that kind of thing. And what I've gotten is to just be a person, one of the most appealing things to me about Alcoholics Anonymous is our equality of membership. Once you say you're a part of AA, you're just as important as anyone else here. Doesn't matter if you've been sober, 35 hours or 35 years, or 3.5 years. We all are equal here. We don't always treat each other that way, but that's the goal, right? Because without you guys, I don't have a group to help me stay sober. And it's not that I need a lot of hand-holding anymore or anything like that. But I still need a group, because how do I put this? Like, people are always like, you're going to get this if you haven't gotten it already. You were so young. They usually started out with that. You were so young. Do you still think you're an alcoholic? Do you really still need to go to those meetings? That's like, oh, it's funny. The last time my mom said that to me, I just told her about this dude who she knew, who was in the rehab I was in, and he was the only really sober person in the rehab. And he had been sober for a number of years, and then he went out and started doing a bunch of drugs, and he was living in a crack house in Riverside. And then my mom 5 minutes later asked me why I still go to meetings. Gee, I don't know. But anyway, for me, I am convinced of my own alcoholism. And I think that is, Bill W. says that's the step that we have to get perfectly. Because without that, I don't have a lot of motivation to keep showing up here, much less to help other people. I just decided I'm going to send my sponsor a thank you card, because I just listened to one of my sponsees for about, and I know you're not supposed to say this kind of stuff, but I always kind of say whatever. I mean, this person was just, I just wanted to rip my hair out. Well, what about this? Oh, I can't do that. Well, how about that? No, that's not going to work. Oh, I know. Oh, um, and I'm sure I've done that myself. I know I have. But the thing about that chick is that she gave me an hour of not thinking about myself. And our book, Alcoholics Anonymous, says that selfishness and self-centeredness is the root of my troubles. And so any time that I'm not spending thinking about me, I, it's a beautiful thing. And I'll tell you, when I first got sober, I felt, well, everyone thought I was crazy. And it felt like all these people were in my head and they were all screaming at the same time. And today it's quiet up there. And when my head is, blah, 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 I know it's one voice, it's mine. And sometimes there's that still quiet voice, which is to some people, God. I don't know what that is. My soul, inner higher power, whatever you want to call it. But, I went from being somebody who could probably have been institutionalized to being someone who, just a regular person shopping at the Safeway, probably ain't going to get in any trouble today. And it's a miracle. So it's Jesus Christ. I went over. It's time for me to be quiet. If you would like a topic, go ahead and turn off the recording if you want, because nobody's going to